Mona, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having us tonight and those really kind words. We very, very much appreciate it. It's very difficult to explain and to comprehend the real harms and the hazards of hog waste unless you understand and appreciate the way that the waste is being disposed of. In order to explain that to you a little bit better, I'd like to quickly show you some slides of the lagoon and spray system. What we're showing you are some of the illustrations that we used in some of our federal 5 trials to educate our jurors. So first, you really need to understand what a CAFO is, a concentrated animal feeding operation. And today, most of the hogs in this country that are commercially being raised and sold are being raised in these concentrated animal feeding operations. So Linda, if you'll help me with the slides. I'm going to show you inside an industrial hog operation. The hogs stand on concrete floors. They never go outside and breathe the clean air. They never touch the ground. They never see the dirt. And you can see how many are in there. And they get larger and larger. In just 5 months, they can grow to be as high and weighty as 300 pounds. Linda, the next one, please. As she's pulling that up, the way that the waste is disposed of it, you can see that the hogs are standing on wooden slats. The waste goes through those wooden slats and it goes down into a pipe and it comes out in literally an open air hole. Literally, it looks like a football field, but there's holes dug into the earth. Sometimes they're called lagoons. Sometimes they're lined, sometimes they're not lined. Often they're in floodplains, and we know Eastern North Carolina is sandy soil. You have a lot of hurricanes. So the waste just simply, it goes into these open air lagoons. It's not treated, and then it is sprayed in the air. And Linda, I don't know if you can get the photos to work. And if you can, I can just go ahead and explain it. And I will explain that this did work before we start. But you can see you have all the hogs. The waste goes down in these open, it looks like football fields. There they are. See, they're coming up. And it's sprayed into the air. And where it is sprayed is in the communities. And these communities, especially in Eastern North Carolina, you can see, Linda, I have one here. This was one on the left of a number of buildings. They all have generally about 1,224 hogs in them. So if you just had 3 buildings, Dr. Sadler, you would have about 6,000 hogs. When you have that many buildings and the hogs, when they're just fed to grow and add more and more weight. So hogs excrete about 5 times the human waste of a human. So you can imagine a community primarily of color and sandy soil, the waste going in virtually open pits or lagoons, sprayed in the air or evaporating in the air. And there's over 2,000 of these lagoons in Eastern North Carolina. And again, a number of them are in the areas of the communities. So when the spray goes into the air, the wind carries it and it goes literally onto the properties and in the air for the children to breathe, for the other animals to breathe, and for the people to breathe. And when you have hogs and you have all of this waste, you have massive amounts of gases, dangerous, deadly gases. For our trials, we hired a National Geographic photographer, and we were virtually able to capture videos of the gases escaping out of the air And Linda, you did just pull up kind of, you can see the open air, the lagoons that are just holes dug into the earth. And you can see some of that lagoon on the left is pink, some of it is black. And you can imagine what that black is that you're seeing. It's of course the waste that has come up to the surface. We were able, for one of the first times in history, to get inside these buildings, these CAFOs that had the thousands of animals. And we were able to show the juries the condition of the hogs. And especially in our third trial, I mean, you could barely see the eyes of the poor animals, of the hogs, because they were so covered in the waste. In addition to it being sprayed in the air, the gas escapes as I described it. But you have to get the hogs in and out of these communities. And usually or often the roads are adjacent or very near the people's homes. So we had pictures of trucks coming and going all night long with their lights shining into our clients' homes. You know, the sound of the pigs squealing when they're trying to sleep. So the hogs and the trucks were a big part of our trials. The fact that, look what this is doing to the environment, the health hazards, the gases result in the death of a lot of the hogs themselves that are in these very confined spaces inside the buildings. And at least through our trials, the way that the dead hogs were maintained is there would be a massive box, usually sitting somewhere close to these buildings or CAFOs. I referred to them as factories. And they would throw in the open air these dead hogs. And of course, the hogs would decay. And when they decayed, you would have, here's a picture, thank you, Linda, of the spraying in the air. You can see these big, massive sprayers. Linda, if you have any more, just pull them up. There it is. You can see what I just described. You see the communities again, and you see the sprayers. You can imagine it's going straight into and on their homes. We actually tested their homes, and we did find, interestingly, hog waste or feces, the DNA marker for it, on the outside of the homes. And that came into evidence as well. See how close, as I mentioned, the roads are? And those roads are where the trucks and the tractors come and go with the dead hogs. And Linda, I don't know, here's one of our clients, Jimmy Jacobs, and I'd love you to hear, if you can, what he said about
that's just something I love to do. I grows tomatoes, okra, most of all collard. It'll be along about Thanksgiving, they'll be ready to eat. In that field right there. It sprays that field right there. And then when the wind's blowing, it just blows that fog right over here. Oh, that's kind of rough. Sometimes I have to quit. The smell be so strong. The wind be blowing this way. That fog, that mixture fog coming off of it, blows over here. Gets all on my glasses. I just quit and go inside until they get finished.
Mr. Jacobs was in our third trial, and he was one of our lead plaintiffs. And that tractor, you can see how close the road is, and the spraying is I talked about coming over into his garden. And the very sad thing, one of the things that made me so invested in this case is that the clients never know when that the odor will come, or the buzzards that or come to their yards actually because of all the dead boxes or the flies. So the juries did find, all 60 of them, that these practices, having this open air lagoon and spraying it in the air, that it did unreasonably and unnecessarily interfere with their use and their enjoyment of their own properties. So it was a case really of environmental injustice, And we were just happy that the jurors and these people, their stories were really heard and they were told.